Chapter 22. A key was inserted in the door. Haley was sure the tiger had told Brian of their innocent conversation. It might have been innocent for her, but she was sure he wouldn't take it lightly. She cowed in the corner, with her feet up on the chair and her arms wrapped around her legs. The door swung wide open, and in marched Mrs. Anderson. Her dark black hair straight down her back. She wore a long black gown. Her face was porcelain flawless, her eyes black onyx and beautiful. She appeared to be the age of Brian, in her late 20s or early 30s. Haley couldn't be sure. Shifters didn't show their age like humans. Haley didn't understand the pack thing, and one shifter with so many females. All this was new to her, because with the Samsas, it was different. Brothers sharing one female. I want you to understand that we object to your union with our king. He has a right to choose his mates. I have no objection to leopards, jaguars, tigers, and even a mountain lion shifter, but a human? You are dangerous for our family. You will be nothing but trouble. I completely agree with you. So can you just let me go? I promise you won't see me again. Haley stirred in the chair, relaxing her legs. This was the first time she understood stress. She had been protected from all of that by her father. Haley didn't know whether that was a good thing or bad. All she knew was it hadn't prepared her for the real world, a world filled with humans and a world filled with shifters and all kinds of unusual happenings. That's impossible. As much as I dislike the idea and dislike you, it's something I will have to live with. That's why I'm here to lay down the law. I'm the oldest in here, and I control his shifter wives. You will do as I say, otherwise I will set the others against you. He has many wives living on this compound. When he's ready to take you, you will not enjoy it. If I discover that he favors you over us, we will kill you, and make it look like a zebra got loose and stomped you to death. Do you understand? Her eyes were black and cold. All Haley could do was shake her head. She understood everything. She understood that if she didn't leave soon, she would be dead. The female panther shifter would have her killed, and by the look on her face, she would kill her whatever. It was just a matter of when. The werepanther made a quick turn in her black silk gown, strode to the door, opened it, and locked it behind her. The clacking sound of the locks made Haley shudder. All Haley could do was wait around and try to figure out how to escape. She peered through the window and saw miles and miles of land, and heard the crashing of the ocean that was near. If she could get to the outside, she could get to the ocean and swim. Traveling at night through the compound, she didn't know what lay before her. With all those female cats trying to kill her, she wouldn't get 2 yards. Or maybe they would love for her to run away, so they could blame her demise on the wild animals on the property. Sleeping didn't come easy, but when it came, Haley embraced it and slept soundly, until she heard a click of the locks. She didn't know the time, but it was night. Could that be the lion ready to take me? She wondered. She wasn't ready for him. She couldn't tell him no, because after all, he was the king, and now her life depended on him protecting her from the other shifters. She didn't hear a cart, and she hadn't eaten yet. When the door opened, it was a towering figure of a man standing in the doorway. Put some clothes on, he said in a hoarse whisper. He threw her something. She was half asleep. Wiping her eyes, she focused, and it was the large tiger standing over her. What are you doing here? I'm taking you out of here. Are you sure? You do know what that means. I know that if you don't hurry, we will both be meat for Brian's animals. Can you swim? Of course I can swim, Haley said. The safest way is to get to the ocean and then swim about a mile, and then we're free. How are we going to get out of here? We're going to walk out of here. The ocean is in back of the compound, about 30 meters. That seems doable. It doesn't appear to be that far. A half of a football field, the shifter said. That's a horse of a different color, Haley said, with panic in her voice. The tiger closed one eye and tilted his head. Never mind. Haley had dressed and was ready. Stay behind me and hold on to my shirt. Did you mean what you said? Haley couldn't remember a thing she had said to him. Out of desperation, she was just running her mouth, saying anything she thought a shifter wanted to hear. He wasn't like Hunter. Not as handsome as Hunter, and she didn't know him. She could never see him as an alternative to Hunter, but now he was looking pretty good in her eyes. Of course, I meant what I said. She smiled at him with innocent eyes after shooting him a wide smile. The tiger shifter was starved for someone to love or mate with, and that was why he was susceptible to Haley's flattery, but Hunter could have any woman or shifter he wanted. He was free and rich like the lion, and he could do and have who he wanted, unlike the tiger. Hunter only wanted Katie, and when he couldn't have her, he slept with the ones who wanted to be with him, to say they had slept with a shifter, and because the female humans had never had a cock as big as Hunter's, he was their trophy. Hunter wasn't a trophy to Haley. She loved Hunter just like he loved Katie, without question, without boundaries, without judgment, and without caution. Haley and the tiger shifter walked around the corner to the French doors, which opened onto a patio. They stepped out and headed for the tall hedges surrounding the patio, separating them from the Pacific Ocean. I can't climb or jump these hedges, Haley said. That's why I'm here to help you. Before he could lift Haley over the bushes, someone called out to the tiger. What are you doing over there? We're going for a swim. The puma shifter walked closer to the tiger. The tiger wasn't intimidated. He stood in front of Haley. The puma sniffed at the air. You have the king's female with you. Nothing escapes you. That's why he made me head of security. And why do you think I'm his bodyguard? He turned, lifting Haley over the bushes and dropping her in the sand. Go. I can take care of this. If you make it out of here, don't look for me. Go to Insatiable. They will protect shifters there, Haley shouted, running along the beach against the wind, over the sand dunes, and finally she reached the ocean water. She jumped in, not realizing how cold and how far she had to swim, but she knew she had to get far away from there. When her father first taught her to swim, he didn't tell her that swimming in the ocean was far different than in fresh water. He didn't tell her about the currents and undertow, but she discovered that when she got tired, but he had taught her how to rest by floating on her back. It was dark and she kept swimming. She wasn't a strong swimmer. She was just determined. She was determined not to drown because she wanted to live to see Hunter again, and that was why she put one hand in front of the other, not knowing how far and how fast and how long it would take to reach the distant lights and land. She swam, but she couldn't reach the lights, but she did think she was out of harm's way. She listened for the tiger, but she probably wouldn't hear him anyway, because of the water in her ears and the darkness. It was so dark. She was exhausted, and she thought she couldn't do this anymore. Chapter 23. Hunter rode his motorcycle searching for Haley, every day and night since he had heard that she was on her way to meet him in San Francisco. She should have contacted me by now, his mind told him. He stood looking out over the terrace of the hotel, just looking into space, not seeing the Golden Gate Bridge, not seeing the fog as it rolled in and settled over the bay, not hearing the rising and falling of the warning sounds of fog horns blaring in a distance. He listened for the sound of her voice. He thought he heard Haley fighting to breathe far away. He heard a gurgle, as if she was drowning. He became frantic and paced back and forth, because he couldn't do anything to help her, but how could that be? His hearing wasn't that sharp, was it? He dismissed it as his own discouraged breath making that moaning, groaning, struggling sound. She could be anywhere, but why did he think she was in the ocean and drowning? Why was she affecting him this way? Hunter was out of his element. He didn't like the coldness of concrete and being surrounded by water. He didn't want to be here. He had been forced to leave. He could have gone anywhere, but he chose San Francisco because of his nearness to home. What had he wanted to accomplish by running from home and from Samsaville? He had to lose himself. Rid himself of the burning passion he felt. Then maybe he could love again. He had turned away from his home and his family to find solace and clear his mind of Katie and his brother Devin. But now everything was left on hold because of Haley, a home he would buy, his business he had planned on starting. He'd had his money wired to Wells Fargo banks, and it was just sitting there, waiting for him to buy a company and hire employees, but all he could do was worry about Haley and search for her. He didn't know how long he could go without contacting the man who had promised to sell his tech business to him. A well-known businessman in the area had offered to sell one of his starter tech companies for the small sum of $60 million. The company had never made any money, but for some reason there was a bidding war for that tech company, and Hunter knew he could make it prosperous in a few years. He needed to concentrate, but he couldn't. Now all that was on hold until he could find Haley. His food had been delivered, and he was getting ready to sit and eat his usual steak. He wished he had fresh venison. He threw down his fork and knife, grabbed his leather jacket in his hand, and left. Climbing into the elevator, it stopped on the floor under him. He became impatient. Hitting the buttons didn't stop the elevator door from opening. The very shifter Hunter didn't want to see was standing before him. This time the shifter with the amber eyes appeared more relaxed and affable. "Good day, young man," he said, his voice as arrogant as ever. Hunter glanced up, distrustful of him from the last meeting. He had learned in Alaska that you couldn't always trust a smile when it came to shifters, and especially a shifter of his kind. Hunter nodded, but never took his eyes off of him, and stayed close to the door. "I understand that you and I are trying to buy the same company." "I wasn't aware of that," Hunter said, surprised. The name of the person making the bid hadn't been divulged. "Well, I have spies," Brian whispered, his voice hard like a rock. "I hope when I get the company we can still be friends." His voice was deceptive. The arrogance of him to think that he can outbid me, Hunter thought. Although Hunter's assets were limited, he had substantially more to use if he had to. He could even borrow some of Haley's money as an investment and pay her back when she graduated from college. He was pretty sure his company would be profitable by then. "By the way, my name is Brian Anderson. I'm sure you've heard of me. I'm new in San Francisco. My name is Hunter Samsa. I'm sure you have heard of me. My family established Samsaville." Hunter didn't know what to make of the change of expression on Brian's face, except that Haley wasn't a runaway, not in the sense Brian thought. They stepped out of the elevator, and Brian's phone rang. He stood in one spot, watching Hunter as he walked to the area where his motorcycle was stored, and handed the attendant a ticket. Passing the attendant a tip, he climbed on and zoomed out and away from the hotel. By this time, Brian had discovered that Haley was missing. He rushed to his limo, and his driver pulled out into the main street. Hunter zoomed down the highway in and out of traffic. He had a sudden unsettling feeling that she was somewhere near water. He kept hearing water break against rocks. He heard moaning and then the silence. He hadn't searched all over San Francisco because he couldn't. Then he decided to go to the house one of the real estate agents had taken him to. He wanted the property because it was on a cliff that led to the Pacific Ocean, and surrounding it was miles of lush vegetation. To Hunter it was perfect, but he had to find Haley before he could discuss the closing on the property. It took an hour before he arrived at the house on the cliff. It was beautiful and serene. He could be at peace, and there wasn't anyone around for miles. He parked the motorcycle at the front door. He looked in and saw one light had been left on. The for sale sign had also been taken down. She must be confident she has made this sale, Hunter thought. The agent knew when she showed Hunter the house by the way his face lit up that she had made the sale. It was perfect for what he wanted now. Hunter tucked his hands into his pockets and realized that he still had the key to the house. He wondered if he could remember the code. He didn't want police, security, and SWAT surrounding him. He had to keep a low profile. Reaching into his jacket and pulling out his smartphone, he could try texting the agent for the code. It was already 11 o'clock. She must be in bed, he thought, but he would try contacting her anyway. Sydney. This is Hunter Samsa. Sydney sounded as if she had been awakened from a deep sleep. Yes? Who is it? A man's voice asked, which sounded as if he was near her. One of my clients. Don't they have some? Sydney interrupted him. He's the one who wants to buy the cliffside estate, she said. Oh. Ooh. And all was quiet. What is it, Mr. Samsa? How can I help you? I want the house and land. I'm there now, but I can't get in without the code. Do you have the key? She asked. Yes, I have it here. And she gave him the code. Hunter opened the door after putting in the code, then another code to disarm the alarm. He glanced around. He would leave the furniture as it was for now. The way it was sparsely decorated, he could move in tonight without a problem. Standing at the back and looking out the panoramic windows, a notion came into his mind to walk the grounds. Closing the door behind him, he came to stairs leading down to the beach below, and the ocean. Hunter stood and looked around and down at the ocean. He listened, and he heard the moan and groan, and water breaking against the rocks. He walked slowly, then he rushed down 2 steps at a time. He ran to the water and saw nothing. He raised his nose in the air and smelled only the aroma of fish. He stood listening, and all he heard was the flapping of seagulls. A flock were heading in the same direction, and he decided to follow. At first he strolled through the sand, then he suddenly spotted a small object lying among the seaweed. He started running to catch up with the noisy birds circling overhead. In the dark, he could see a small body. He rushed to it, and with a whipping of his hands, he beat off the gulls. Lying face down in the sand was a small woman. Hunter had never afraid of anything, but he was afraid to turn her over. However, he did, and the body was Haley. He stared at her face for a second, praying she wasn't dead. He checked her jugular, and it was beating. There was life in her. He reached for her mouth, clearing it of seaweed, and placed his mouth over hers, and for a half an hour he blew the breath of life into her lifeless body. He wouldn't give up, and he wouldn't stop breathing air into her lungs. He would never give up, and finally with a large heave of breath, her body responded, and she began breathing on her own. He scooped her up and ran with her down the beach, up the stairs, and into the house. He pulled off all her wet clothes and wrapped her in the nearest blanket. Then he lit a fire in the fireplace. He thought about calling a doctor, but he couldn't trust anyone. She appeared to be fine. Maybe she needs a little rest, he thought, but her eyes remained closed. Her body wasn't pale anymore. Hunter wiped her tangled hair and her small face with his hand. He lowered his lips down and kissed her. At first her lips were cold, but then they gradually warmed. He was grateful to have her back. He never knew how much he really liked her. Of course she's a nuisance, but she's my nuisance, and she makes me feel good, even if I could strangle her for causing me so much worry, he thought. Surveying her body, and by the way she looked, she had eaten well. He felt strange looking on her body, admiring her perky breasts and nipples. He had never thought of her in a sexual way. His eyes traveled the length of her body. She was indeed a woman. He had thought of her as a little girl. Where did he get that notion? She had tried over and over, telling him that she was older than she appeared. It was her father who had given him that idea. Maybe he wanted to protect her from me, Hunter thought. It was the month of the moon tide that he had traveled with her. Her father knew she wasn't ready for a mature werewolf such as Hunter. Her father also knew that she was infatuated with Hunter. All these thoughts came into Hunter's mind. Maybe Dr. Redmond had wanted to give his human daughter a chance to decide on a husband, whether he would be human or shifter. However, Haley had decided from the day she met Hunter that he was the one, even if he had his mind on someone else. She would wait for as long as it took. Hunter's mind focused. Why was Haley in the water? Hunter questioned. He knew why. Something had happened to her. She had been taken by someone. A young woman traveling alone on a highway had to be a recipe for disaster. Hunter had decided that he was her protector, and therefore he would hunt them down and punish them by man's law. Lying beside Haley, he took her in his arms to keep her warm. She began moving and clinging onto him, but still she didn't open her eyes or speak.